Good evening. Welcome to our Rebbe Nachman class on Patreon. I'm Avraham Shira. Yesterday we learned that there is a master of the field and there's a field. And that field is filled with souls. And those souls can be in their bodies or they can be out of their bodies. And we have been introduced to this extraordinary character, the master of the field, who is a soul that is capable of giving its life for the sake of others, for giving its service for the sake of others, to bring people back to their place in the tree of life, whether they're in their bodies or not. And so we have to, as we learn this Torah, we have to keep both categories of activity awake in our mind, that there are fixing going on here in this world in our bodies, and then there's fixing going on above that we don't see and we don't know, and we really have not been introduced to it too much. If it wasn't for the sake of a tzaddik like Rabbi Nachman, who has helped to open our eyes to worlds that we didn't know existed. Now we're in the second paragraph, and he says, the master of the field, we learned yesterday also, just to review, is the one who is able to maintain the balance of growth amongst the different souls, to have a healthy distance, and to have proper kavod, honor, and to set the tone and the direction of the service of the souls that are connected to him. Today, we hear when these souls that are attached to this master make fruit. They make fruit. What kind of fruit? Is it apples? Is it oranges? Because they're doing God's will. In other words, every soul has the power to give forth fruit. The fruit of a soul is a spark of godly life force that comes into the person, and it produces inspiration, and then that inspiration produces new service, and that new service produces new light in the world. So it's not that complicated if you break it down into its parts. And so these souls that are coming close now, and they're reaching for their connection to the tree of life, their specific one, and every single person has a different place on the tree. No two souls occupy the same space exactly. Although we did learn about the competition sometimes when souls are born from similar or places. Nonetheless, when these souls are making these fruit, they're bringing this light in that they're giving back over to the world, either through good deeds or through holy prayers or through learning Torah. Then the eyes of the master are illuminated. See, this is what happens. We live on an integrated soul plane, right? Our network is each other's souls. Just like our PCs are connected on a network, and a corporation has all their little PCs on their master network and so on. So every master has the souls connected to him. And when the people, the students, the followers, those are connected to the master, do God's will, his eyes get illuminated. Now, check this closely. That's why certain rabbis have tremendous power of vision, because their eyes are illuminated by the good deeds of their followers. See, there's a symbiotic relationship going on between our teachers and our students. And then they can see and gaze in a place they need to, which is, we already learned that the place that we need to gaze towards is, where is my address on the tree of life? Where do I plug in? Because not everybody's hardly connected to the same place. Which is the phrase of the field of the seers. Sofim or seers, they see. But the idea of sofei, litzapot, is to oversee. That you gaze in the distance and you don't just see the horizon. You see the little smoke in the distance, and you see the fire truck approaching the smoke. You see far away, and you know that something's going on somewhere else, and this vision is not just in the physical plane. The Sedei Sofim was a place where people would go to find a seer that could help them with their issue back in the biblical day. Okay. But when the souls are not doing God's will, Chas v'shalom azai nidhashkim einav. The master of the field's eyes darken. He loses his vision. Chas v'shalom zebechinat sedei bochim. And this is the field of the weepers, those who go weeping in the field, which of course is connected to the idea of mourning. Ki bechihu kilkul ha'ra'ut. Well, we have this damage to the eyes or to the vision, as it is written, "V'shavu avi machar agashem," and the clouds come back after the rain. What are the clouds? What is the rain over here? V'darshu Razal, our sages taught in Masechet Shabbat, "Ze hara'ut she'olech achar abechi." This is the idea that, there is a rainy day, the rain comes and it goes, and then the sky is still very cloudy, and you don't see well because of the rain and the mist, etc. So this is metaphor for after a person cries, after a person weeps, his vision isn't so strong necessarily. Ukeshe einav mi'irot v'tzofot, and when a person's eyes are illuminated and he does see, b'chinat sedei tzofim, when he enters that category of the field of the seers, azay yochol istakel b'chol echad v'echad, then he can gaze, when he has the vision, into every person that he sees, lavio elo tachlit, and he can bring him to his purpose. See, each person has a different purpose in God's plan. We're not all, robots trying to do the same exact thing. We have the Torah and we have the mitzvot as our manual that brings us to a healthy, wholesome, focused life. But it doesn't necessarily bring us to our tachlit, the actual, deeper, destined role that we're supposed to play in this world. And he gives us a secret. It's not just gazing into the distance over the plain of the Sedei Sophim, the field of the seers, right? It's gazing into the speech of the people who are speaking. Histakel ba'dibur. How do you gaze into speech? Wait, speech is something you hear. It's not something you see. But there's a level where your vision and your hearing are unified. And you're receiving information from both at the same time. Now, the ultimate level of this took place at Mount Sinai when all our senses were bound together into what's called synesthesia. When we hear voice, we hear sights and we see sounds. And all the networking in our brain is becoming a unified place of information reception. And there is a nerve at the back of the brain that absorbs or carries into the brain the various information sources of the world through sight, through sound, through smell, through touch, through taste. And all five of those are bound together into one information conduit. Your consciousness lights up. And then you can see into speech. Or you can hear the distance much further than the normal 50 miles or so that anybody can see from a mountaintop. And he can gaze into the speech, im eno al tikono b'shlemut, if a person has reached his tachlit. See, you can tell a person who's reached his purpose in life, and he's living it and doing it. And the way he speaks tells you that. And if a person hasn't reached his real tachlit, his real purpose for being here, then that'll show in his speech. He's a little bit lost. Now, I used to think, well, as a a younger person. Let's go with that. That, well, I'm here to keep Torah. I'm here to pray. I'm here to learn. I'm here to meditate. I'm here to do mitzvot. I'm here to do good deeds. I'm here to be a good husband, a good father. That all sounds like our tachlit, our purpose, right? Those are purposes. But it's not the special one that each of us were created for. That's different. That's on a higher plane. That's the reason why God created you in the first place. All these other subcategories of purposes are only there to get us to recognize and to achieve the deeper, truer purpose. And he can see mechamat richuk metachlit adayin, and why a person is still far from his purpose. Azayhu mevio el tachlit, and the tzaddik can bring you to that purpose. Va'az hadibur kahogen b'shlemut, and then a person's speech is fitting and whole. It's not lacking. He's no longer missing the point of all of this carnival, this carnival of chaos that we live in. Because every speech is a complete world. As the Baal Shem Tov teaches us, there is time, there is space, and then there is intention. Intentionality is the purpose of a thing. What is the intended idea of this world? The world where, you go out into the, as kids, we'd go out into the street. That's a place. On, Sunday afternoon, that's a time. And we'd go out and sell lemonade. Oh, remember those days? People used to do that before there was a vending machine on every corner. And the purpose of the selling the lemonade was because as kids, we wanted a little bit of pocket change. That was the intentionality of that moment. That moment, kids selling lemonade on the sidewalk is a world. So it's not this giant planet that we live on, which is not so giant at all if you look at the other planets and the stars and realms, but it's still a world. So we have to, it's kind of like we want to bring our tools of focus down into this world to see that worlds are just that. There's these little moments in time and space and intentionality. And so if a person is connected to his purpose, then automatically his world becomes complete. And the speech itself will reflect that fullness of, if you ever go talk to somebody and I say, how are you doing? They say, I don't know. And you say, well, what's happening? Well, not much. And you say, well, how can I help you? I'll say to them, and they'll say, well, I'm not sure why I'm even here. Those are three good answers to teach us that a person is not yet connected to his tachlit, to why I'm here, why I'm suffering, why I'm not sure, why I don't trust the world, including myself. When people give you those types of answers, it's a time of mercy to try to be there for them, and maybe that God will illuminate your eyes to be able to see that their connection, where it needs to happen. And when a person begins to pray, he stands to pray, and he says the words of the prayer, tzitzim, he gathers in flowers, bouquets, uprachim, another word for flowers, v'shoshanim na'im, and a more specific type of flower. Shoshanim, there's Shoshanim generally is a type of flower that grows in the northwest of Israel. And some people use that word for roses, but it's not accurate. A rose is a verid, not a shoshana. But anyways, you see, we're getting three categories of flowers, but these are all three categories of metaphors for the words of prayer. When a person stands and praise. You're sending out words into the world, but you're actually gathering in. You're gathering in fragrant blossoms, beautiful little worlds of intentionality. Remember, time, space, intention. When you say Baruch, and you really mean it, that's a little world. Why? Because it's here and it's now, and it has intention on those letters, Bet, Resh, Chaf, Vav, Chaf, then you get a world. Now, it's very small. It's a little capsule. But if you put enough of those together, he's going to tell us, and he goes out into the field. And he gathers in these flowers, one after another. Ad she'osim aguda achat, a gathering. What's a gathering of words of prayer? Well, that's a sentence. ואחר כך מלקט עוד אחת לאחת עושים אגודה אחרת. And he does the same thing again, gathering these flowers in the field. ומחברם יחד, and he gathers them together into another sentence. וכן הולך ומלקט, מקבץ כמה וכמה אגודות יפים ונעים. And he goes on and gathers more and more. כמו כן הוא הולך בתפילה מאות לאות. So too a person goes not just word for word in prayer, but it's letter for letter, because each letter has a space, its shape in the graphic plane we live in, and it has a time, the time that letter is coming out of your mouth, and it has an intentionality, how much you're attached to the will, or how much your will and the will of the Creator are one. But see, this introduces us to a world of prayer that most people never touch. We wouldn't know this world of prayer existed if there wasn't these teachings. That we're gathering letters is gathering flowers. We're going to eventually bring a big arrangement to the throne of glory. Make that place a little more beautiful. Maybe even add a beautiful scent. From letter to letter he goes. Until he gathers several letters together, and he creates a speech. Then he makes complete words, and he gathers two words together, Baruch Atah. It's not just blessing, it's you are blessed. And then he gathers even more and more. And now he identifies where he's talking about, of course, in the Amidah, the 19 blessings that we say 3 times a day, hopefully. And these letters that are gathered into words that are gathered into sentences become whole blessings until they become, go from one blessing to another, from the Avot, which is Likutei Avraham, Likutei Yitzhak, we call it Magen Avraham. And then the Gevorot are that we're praising God for his might and his power, which includes the power of rain. And the Gevorot, the Kedoshot, and then we go to that God is holy, the third blessing of the Amidah. And he goes on forward into the prayer. Further, and who can express the greatness of the beauty of these gatherings? That a person gathers from the words of his prayer. And then when the speech leaves your mouth, it's leaving your soul. See, your soul is here, it's inhabited in you, right? And it has its layers and its levels. When it's coming out of your mouth, it's leaving the bottom sphirot of the 10 sphirot of the head, which is the malchut of the head. And that mouth portal, right, is where your soul stretches into the world through speech. And then the words leave your soul and enter the world. As it is written, V'yehi ha'adam lenefesh chaya, in the creation story, God said, and it will be that the soul of man will be alive. It will live. He granted life to the soul. V'yehi adam nefesh chaya. Man will be a living soul. Before, what was man before a living soul? Well, you were a concept in God's mind. And look, being a concept in God's mind is not a bad thing. But you're not set free on your own to live your life in his world. You're still in the potentiality of being in some infinite being's mind. But we want to be born. We want to come into the world to do what we're here to do, to fulfill the reason that we were created in the first place. As the Targum says, L'ruach memalala, a speaking spirit. Rabbi Yonatan, or Onkelos, I believe, in this particular pasuk, both of those rabbis produced Targumim of the Torah. He says it's Ruach Mamalala, the speaking spirits. So your soul is your speaking spirit. When you have the urge to speak, that's your soul giving urge through its medium. So, 35 years ago or so, I started out on a journey to find myself, to find God, to find truth. And after all these years, it's a giant loop back to our own speech. To find Hashem in your speech, to find your soul in your own speech. V'adibor ba v'nishba nishma lo'oznav. And then the prayer comes out of your mouth and it goes back into your ear. So there's a feedback loop now. You get to hear yourself talk. Now, do dogs listen to themselves bark? I don't know. There's some pretty smart dogs out there, that's for sure. But do they listen to the way they bark? Am I barking nicely this morning? Is my neighbor okay with my barking? I'm not sure all dogs have that process. It'd be nice, right? As the rabbis taught, make known in your ears what's coming out of your mouth. We are commanded to listen to our own speech. Because part of what happens to us when we get emotionally and intellectually stimulated, we forget to listen to ourselves. It's in slang, it's called going out on a jag, right? You start to speak and then you forget that you're even talking. And there's a listener. And maybe you're overwhelming that person, or maybe you're revealing something you shouldn't, or maybe there's a lot of maybes over there when it's connected to why and what we're saying. And the rabbis command us, listen to what your mouth is saying. Oh, and now your speech that's come out of your mouth, that's been sent there by your soul, what does it do? It has a request. And it says to the soul, don't leave me, I don't want to leave you. The Baal doesn't want to separate. Speech itself is created from your soul. It goes out carrying a piece of you. And then it looks back in the rearview mirror and says, no, I don't want to leave you. Interesting. In most cases, people desire to say what they want to say. Some people, they actually don't desire to say what they say. They just do it anyways. They've lost a certain function there. But the Rebbe's revealing a deeper thing, that your speech wants to come back and be attached to you. Immediately when the first letter, Baruch, the first letter bet comes out of your mouth, Kevan Ot Bet, Metevat Baruch, he gives us this example. The speech doesn't want to be separated from its source. Sound familiar? Your speech doesn't want to separate it from you, just like we don't want to be separated from God, because we are his speech, expressed into a living soul in this funny little four-wheel vehicle we call our bodies. Because how can he separate from her? Because of the greatness of the attachment and the love that exists between the soul and the speech. Wow. Because you, the soul, see the precious, beautiful, shining, glorious beauty. Look at these words. The soul and the speech know the beauty of what they're doing when you're praising God. And how can you disconnect from it? And how can you separate from me? You ever ask yourself, why am I so tired after I talk most of the time? Well, the reason we're tired is because we talk too much. Or we say things that aren't worth saying. And they drag our soul into the world that doesn't want to go there on those words. But when you talk to God, the soul wants to attach to God. And at the same time, the words have their soul that don't want to separate from you. Hen emet. And this is truth. But we still have to keep going further. There's much more to say in the prayer than the word Baruch. The part of us is holding us back at the beginning. At the first letter of the first blessing of the first prayer. Kedei lilaket od sugulot yikarot v'chamudot gedolot. To gather more treasures. Segulot are really tools. They're charms is the more old-fashioned, translation of a segula. Segula. The nation that brings about redemption. That's why God calls us his segula, because that's our job. To redeem ourselves with his help, obviously. And then we glorify his name. However, how can you separate from me? And forget me. Oh, see, the part of the problem of the separation is we can forget. Have you ever been inside your prayer and you forget that you're praying? It's a moment worth looking at from several different angles. On one hand, you could enter a state of such an absolute attachment to God that you forget yourself altogether. And that's a very high level. Or you could forget that you're praying because you're thinking about your shopping list, or you're thinking about your appointment that morning, or you're thinking about the wall I better paint before the rain comes crashing down. All came. All call panim, and nevertheless, tir'eh shebechol makom shetelech tavo lesham lo tishakach oti. But nevertheless, in all cases, you should see to it that in every place that you go and that you come to, lesham lo tishakach oti, you should not forget me. That your prayers, you send it out, should not forget its source is your soul. That it's all one link of divine power. Link by link in the chain of speech itself. And do not separate. See, the minute you remember God, you're attached to him. It's a good thought. And the minute you forget God, then, well, it's like closing the window, on the last person standing in line at the checkout. The minute we forget Hashem, we get a little disconnection. And then the minute we remember him, we get reconnected. And that helps. Because oftentimes we can remember God, but it's like, oh, God, oh, I got to pray more. Oh, I didn't do this. Oh, I didn't do that. Suddenly we have a whole long list of what's lacking. And there's something good in that, and there's something dangerous in that. Because we can hurt ourselves with our lists of lacks. But you don't go into prayer with your list of lacks in your back pocket. That's what vidui is for. That's what the prayer before and after the Amida is. That I first acknowledge to Hashem where I really am, how far I am from Him. And I lack this and this and this and this. Not my lacks of, I lack my Corvette, I lack my speedboat. No, that's not called a lack. That's called an injunction of entitlement, right? A lawyer should put that in the docket, This client is entitled to this injunction of his speedboat. No. What the lacks we're talking about is the lacks of wholeness in our service, the lacks of I haven't learned all the things I need to learn. I haven't prayed all the prayers I need to pray. I haven't remembered all the people that need to pray that don't even know that prayer exists. How many billions of people don't even think about God? That's what we're here for, to help them. And the prayer is still saying, don't forget me. Don't forget me. I'm still connected to the beginning of your moment of prayer. And all the more so teva achat. Even after you finish, everybody done this before, I'm sure. You pray one word and then you go to the next word and you already forget where you are in the prayer. Wait a minute, am I in the first blessing, the 10th blessing? What happened here? And then all the word that you forgot wants to be remembered. Now there's such a binding of soul to a speech and to the one we're speaking to in these moments. It is a fantastic moment of attachment to the higher one, singular, unified light of creation. And it's taking place through paying attention to these details of prayer. When I forget where I am, it could be because I have left the realm of the words and entered another realm. Or it could be because my mind is addled with this world. We got to separate from this world in order to attach to the world we're talking about here. Now, this is interesting. As I call it, Teva Mivakesh, calling all the word of prayer is requesting all the things that we just mentioned. It surrounds him, hovers around him, and hugs him. Is that a little bit off the map, that your words of prayer will actually hug you? And do not let you go on from your speech to the next speech, because the first speech, you're so attached to it, you don't want to leave it. But you must. And when the truth is that a person must go forward and go on in the prayer, many more speeches, many more words, and many more blessings, and subjects and required, ad gamar atfila, until he finishes the prayer. Okay. The general principle is that we want to make this whole prayer one. It's like you go out in the field and they pay you to collect flowers for 8 hours. And you come home and you did your shift. You got a wagon full of flowers. And then you think, oh, good, I'm going to get paid and go home. And the boss comes out and says, no, you're not done yet. I need you to collect all those flowers that you've collected for 8 hours and tie them into one bundle, one bouquet of 10,000 flowers. That's a different level of prayer. That's the prayer where it's all one. And of every speech that he said, And then even more complex a take on it is that all the words that you've just prayed are all included in each other. And in Kabbalah, this is called the intercollusion of worlds. That your trait of kindness can mix with your trait of severity. And your wisdom can mix with your understanding. And your truth can mix with your falsehood, if we're not careful. And so on and so forth. And from the beginning of the prayer to the end, and that is the goal of such a prayer, is that from the beginning to the end, you're still standing at the beginning when you're standing at the end. He says what I just said. You're still standing there at the beginning. In order that you can pray all of this prayer, in order that you will not be separated from your speech. And this is a great thing also for restoring our memory. When you pray at this level of remembering what you say, well, that memory itself is the glue of this prayer. Now, Rebbe Nachman calls memory a nes, a miracle. The fact that we remember things is a miracle. Now, look, the birds will remember where the nest is when they come home at the end of the day. And so will the cats, and the cats will remember where your garbage pails are, And every level of creation has a memory. Plants have memories. Plants know when a nice guy enters the room and when a not nice guy that used to come and snip them all the time, pick them. They remember trauma. They remember beauty. They remember pleasure. But it's a different level, but it's still a miraculous thing. The memory, because memory is the glue that holds creation together. It's the glue that holds our mind together. And if you've ever spent any time with anybody that has Alzheimer's or any type of senility, you see it right there in front of you. Hashem Yirachem. It's a painful thing to see. When a person's memory starts to fall apart into pieces, they can't hold the pieces of their life together. It's no longer a unified being in front of you. And okay, that's more of a, we're not going to go to a long talk about that tonight because it's something that people are facing all over the world every day. And especially with the lifestyles that we lead, it's not conducive to this level of attachment of our words, to our soul, of our consciousness, to our Creator, of our intention, to our actions. They all need to be bound together, because when they are, we become the conduit of the Creator in creation. And humanity, then you understand why it says that the tzaddik of the generation, the greatest man in the generation, he's the one standing at the faucet of divine inspiration. And that is the end of this paragraph, and I hope it's all one paragraph of learning, and I hope it reaches you in that state of readiness for the oneness, and the awareness of how everything is bound to everything through our speech. And what we have to start doing is just listening. And when we pray, to listen to the letters as they come out of your mouth. Listen to the words as those letters gather. And I'll tell you a little secret to that is to slow down. Slow down your prayer. Don't race through prayer. Rather, speak slowly, very slowly. Baruch atah Hashem. Like he's really there. And if you believe he's really there, guess what? He will be. God bless you all. Have a great evening. We'll continue this awesome Torah tomorrow. And you should be blessed with the power of prayer and consciousness in all that you do.